Alright guys, welcome back to a new video. So today's video, we're going to be talking about how to use a graph database such as Neo4J. So Neo4J is a really famous graph database made by Google, and basically it is really easy to just set up on the cloud, and then we can actually run some CRUD operations on our computer connecting to the database. And it's free to use for one database, and it should be good for today. So why do we need a graph database? Well, let's think of an example where we need to follow other people. So any type of social media or applications such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or even LinkedIn. So in these applications, you're going to need to have connections between different people, right? Probably follow, or maybe in some of these friend. I'm not sure, whatever. So, what you want is you don't want to use like a SQL traditional relational database, where maybe for every single row you're going to have one friend. So let's talk a little bit about the design of maybe how a Postgres or like a SQL database would work for our friending example or use case, and also how our graph would work. And then we can actually compare the big O complexities between these. All right, so pretty much this is kind of how a design of a Postgres or a SQL database would actually work for our following use case. So we'd have maybe a users table, and then we'd have our following table, and this following table would maybe have a username, so who is following who, and then the person that they're following. All right, so basically this would be a big O complexity to search whoever's following as a big O complexity of n. Let me explain why. So if I wanted to see, let's say, who all is following me, right? I'd have to run a query. So let's just write a simple query. So we can just select all, right? Where our following equals, and then we'll just say like for now. Okay. Well, what this is going to do is this has to search through this entire table to find who all's following me, right? Because first of all, it doesn't matter if nobody is following me, right? Because our table doesn't know that, right? So it has to search through from the top to the bottom to find out if somebody is following me. And that's why it's a big O complexity of n, right? Because what happens if my latest following is me? Well, I'm going to have to search through this entire thing or else I'll get a wrong following. So that's why this is a big O complexity of n. And in the other case of a graph, or we can keep that. And in other case of a graph, it is going to be a big O complexity of v. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, this means as our nodes increase, so as the amount of people increase, the amount of time that it takes will increase. So how are these two different? Well, big O of n is just how much for the data that we insert, we just get more time. Well, this is just the amount of nodes we get more time. It almost seems the same. So let's talk about an example. So remember, for O of v, big O complexity of v, this is not going to be, it's not about the amount of relationships. So it's not about the amount of vertexes. So for example, let's say we have 4 different people, right? It's not about the connections between these people. It's just about the amount of nodes. So this is just going to be 4, right? It's not going to be, right, let's say everybody is following somebody else. Okay, it's kind of mixed up. I'll redraw that. It's not going to be the amount of nodes factorial, right? And that is going to be 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, and this is actually 24. So we can kind of see the difference. Here, well, it is big. It is big of n because it's first of all, this is not bidirectional. It can't be bidirectional because let's say I follow, for instance, my brother, right? He wouldn't. That doesn't mean that he follows me, right? So it has to go one way. That's why it is the factorial. So it's only going one way. So in this case, let's say everybody follows each other. Well, this is going to be 24 different rows. Okay, so we can actually see the difference between this. So 24 versus 4, and if we talk about, and obviously this is the worst case scenario, and that's how we derive our big O. But let's say we have, I don't know, 100 nodes. Well, 100 nodes. If everybody's following each other, well, that's going to be 100 factorial, and that's going to be a lot of different rows in our table that we have to search through, which will take a very, very long time. So that's why you can see in this worst case scenario where everybody's following everybody else, you can see that there is a huge difference between our big O n and our big O of v. So so that is the difference. And that's why we want to use a graph database for this specific use case. All right, so basically what we want to do is we just want to go into our Visual Studio Code. And I just created this basic Python kind of class, right, that we can perform some pretty basic CRUD operations. So we just have a create function, and this create function is just going to create a node in our database. I have a return function, which is going to return all the friends of somebody, and then I also have a create friendship, which is just going to create friendship between two nodes. Okay, so this code I will put this on maybe PyPy, or just put it in GitHub, so you guys can just copy this and use it for your driver as well if you'd like. Also, we can do is there is a driver, a basic code on Neo4j, which I'll show you how you can actually use that as well. But anyways, let's just get on Neo4j and let's create our database. So if we go to our Neo4j, you can see I already have signed up. So this is just what you're going to see when you sign up and then you sign in. But the link to sign in is just neo4j.com. Just click Start Free for Developers, Start Free, and then just create a username and password to sign up. Okay. If you have any trouble signing up, anything, you can just put in the comments down below and I'll try to help you. All right. But once you're in your account, you can just click New Instance and create a new instance. So you can only use one instance for free because, as you can see, when I click New Instance, I have to pay. But one instance right here that I have is going to be good for this video. So you can see I just have my instance here, and I just called it Neo4j. So for the purposes of this video, I would recommend just create your instance as Neo4j, because this base code, you need your database name as Neo4j, and for my code, it has the same thing. So basically, if you just put Neo4j, then you'll have no problem just running this code and you don't have to edit anything. All right. So what we can do is, you can see on this connect, we have our Python driver, and this is just almost really similar to what I made. I just took this code, I made it how I wanted it with different cipher queries, because it's a little bit different. So what this is doing, you can create a friendship, but when you create a friendship, you're creating a node and a friendship. And I didn't want to have it on the same thing because I wanted to be able to create a node and then also create a friendship without having to create a new node. And then also, when you find a person, I don't find this too useful how their function works. It just returns the name of the person that you entered. And that helps you check out the nodes in the database, but it doesn't really find anything for us. So for my find person, what it does is it actually finds all the friends of the person. Okay, so that's pretty much the only differences. If you'd like to use this code, you can feel free to use it. It's almost the same, but yeah. So you can just copy this, put in your code. But I'm just going to be using mine. And this is really important. You have to have Python 3.6 or above. So for example, I actually ran into some issues with having, or actually, sorry, it's not Python 3.6 and above, it's actually above Python 3.6. So I had some issues running into when I was using Python 3.6.8, and what happened was it wouldn't work because it's not Python 3.6 or above, it's Python 3.6. So you'd have to use Python 3.7 or anything above that. All right. And if you do use this and you see an error called like transaction not complete, something like that, it's because your Python version is not correct. All right. So now what we can do is we can just copy this pip install Neo4J. We can go back to our Visual Studio Code, open up our terminal, and then we can just install this. Okay. I already installed it, so really nothing happens. And yeah. All right, so once you install it, you can just get started with this code. All right, so what we can do is let's just create a node in this database. So we can just run this function create, and this is going to help us to create a node. All right, and before we run this, let's open a UI where we can see all our nodes. So we just have to hit this query button, and then click the connect with your username and your password. And your default username is Neo4J. All right, and now if we just run this command, match parenthesis n, return n, this is going to get us all our nodes in our database. So you can see there's no nodes here, and it just tells us that it's done after 14 milliseconds. All right, so perfect. So now if we run this command, and let me just change Rohan, sorry, to Pranav. Sorry, right now, let's just say Pranav. It doesn't really matter. Then we can just run this, and maybe we can also run how many nodes or who are our friends by running this find as well. And if we run this, you can see that we have actually created the node, and then we returned a list of all our friends, and obviously there's no other nodes, so we can't have any other friends in this database. So now if we actually run the same command again, you can see our node pops up. So perfect. So we just ran a CRUD operation. We just ran, okay. So we just ran a C, right? So I'll create. All right. So now let's just create one more node, so then I can show you how to add the friend. So instead of Pranav, we can just maybe say, I don't know, Bob. All right. So we can just run this, and it's created. So now if we run this again, you can see we have Bob. And then finally, we can create one more, and let's just say, let's just say Rohan, right? We can just run this. Okay, perfect. It's created, and now you can see we have Rohan too. Okay, so now let's say I want to be friends with Bob, right? So let's just minimize this a little bit. So what I want to do is I just want to create a friendship between Bob and me, but I want it to only be one directional. Okay, so let's say I want to follow Bob. So what I can do is I can just click this friendship. I can uncomment this, and I can just say Pranav and then Bob. And how my database works is all it is just a node, and the only value is the name. But you can actually change this. So in the code, here you can see when I create it, all I have is a name for the person. Well, if you just wait, let's go to the create. So if you just change this and you want to add something else, then go for it. So you can just maybe add some different values. But I'm just gonna have a name, and I'm just gonna have a connection, right? So let's run this. I think it just did not. Let's see if it ran. Did it run it? Okay, so I haven't run it yet. So now if we just run this, okay, so it worked. And now if we do this, you can see we have our connection between Pranav and Bob, and it just added a new Rohan because I had this create Rohan still there. Okay, but whatever. So what we can also do is we can actually run a delete. Okay, and then all we have to do is you can just run this delete, and this would take 2 parameters, so just this same thing. And we can just say not involved, just like that. But if you want, we can actually make it like the other direction. So Bob friends, and then we can actually find all the friends of Pranav. Yeah. So you can see we have our 2 Bobs, and if we run this, okay, because we have 2 different friendships, so it's both directions. But all right, great. So now we can just delete this friendship. So we can just delete one direction of it. Okay, and now you can see there's no more. So I just cleared the entire thing. All right. Oh wait, no. What happened? It cleared just one of them because I created another friendship. So what I did was I just cleared it. So if we run this, and now I'm pretty sure this. Okay. So it actually has, because I had 2, because I ran that on accident. I have Bob has friended Pranav twice. This shouldn't work in your actual code, but it just for the purposes, I just haven't changed that yet. But it friended twice. But in your code, you probably want to make sure that he hasn't friended yet. And now if we delete that relation, so if we do Bob here instead, with Pranav, then that will actually delete. Because remember, we also had a connection from Pranav to Bob as a friend, and that actually got deleted. So now if we run this, we can see there's no more connections. All right, so perfect. We have 4 nodes, everything. So we just ran some CRUD operations for Neo4J. So we just got that set up. We can also run it in here as well. So if we want, we can just copy these ciphers. So if I just copy this, it's going to return me everybody who's a friend as a node. So maybe we can just delete all of that. Make sure you don't have the quotes again, because then it's not going to work. Okay, if we run this, add a specifying parameter. Did we miss something? Oh yeah, okay. So this person, we have to change this because we didn't actually specify who this is. So so this is going to give me all the friends of Pranav. All right, so there's no friends right now. If we want, we can actually just create a friend just by creating this. Okay, and then this time we can just make a friend with, let's say, Rohan. So, and then one thing you probably want to know is this match is kind of like a select in SQL. So we're just kind of creating this variable of this person. So we're just having this person, we're finding our other person, and then we're making connection through that. So now here we can just change this to Pranav, and then this one to Rohan. Okay, and if we just run this, you can see now Pranav is we've just returned Pranav is a friend of Rohan, and the other Rohan that I created on accident. And we can also just return the thing that we had over here, right? And this should return us the same thing. So I just created another friend, and now if we do this. Alright, so that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button on this video and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. But once again, thank you guys for watching this video, and until next time,